League of Legends is a game that many people have felt as though has been getting stale, but with Riot's recent 2024 preview of next season, the community has been reacting extremely positively, and with this being the most ambitious series of changes we've ever seen at once, the future of League is looking bright, and I'm going to go over why. With League being a MOBA, there are constant variables within the gameplay that can easily affect different matches and completely flip the meta on its head. With this being the case, Riot seems to have always been extremely cautious with their updates. As tradition, the largest changes to the game happen during preseason time. This is to make the player base excited for the constantly changing meta and to avoid having the game be forgotten. However, while we have received large-scale changes in the past, like the map aesthetic revamp in late 2014, or the addition of the elemental dragons, which coincidentally also took part in shifting the map in different ways, Riot for the most part have treated these changes with high sensitivity, basically playing it safe to essentially not try to fix something that's not already broken, I guess. Nevertheless, like I stated in the intro, the player base, myself included, have felt burnt out from playing League, partially because of the lack of positive or exciting changes and the suspicious string of misses by Riot over the years as well. However, it looks like that's all going to change. By far the most exciting part of the new changes is our new and improved Summoner's Rift map. Like I said earlier, the last time we had a significant map update was in Season 6 with the addition of the Elemental Drakes, with some terrain being removed or added, or new interactive mechanics like wind tunnels. It doesn't compare to what's coming up. The Void-themed Summoner's Rift is the biggest thing Riot has ever introduced. This is because the map is just fundamentally different. This is evident with the removal of certain bushes like the long one in the river by top and bot lane. It's been replaced by a pixel bush, along with a wider entrance from the river. This change will give the jungle role less agency, as it will be harder to gank either of these lanes with how much extra space they would have to cover without crossing over a ward. However, this doesn't completely nerf jungle to the ground because they also added a new entrance from the jungle in the form of an extra tri-bush, extending near the turret of red side bot lane. In terms of top lane, red side's path to the lane from tri-bush was removed and replaced with a massive wall that leads into the red side jungle. Like I said, while these changes are a clear nerf to jungle, they are mainly to balance the respective advantages that red and blue side have had for forever. As you can see, red side top lane has always had this entrance to the lane, meaning the player on red side has always had a disadvantage because they were more susceptible to ganks and dives. With the addition of this massive wall, it's now basically even. Same idea with bot lane. Blue side had a disadvantage because they always had an extra avenue to be collapsed from, and now red was given that path as well. So both bot lanes can be punished equally. Top lane will be more true to the idea of a 1v1, while bot lane will have to deal with the consequences if they're over aggressive, which to me seems like a good idea seeing as ADC has been way too easy for way too long. Mid laners were not left out as their gameplay will arguably be altered the most. While we can pretty unanimously agree that mid lane has always been the safest area of the map to chill at, that will be changing. Riot made the river entrances much wider and pushed the brush back further away from the lane, giving the laner more space and safety from river-based ganks. However, to counter this change, they've also added entrances from the jungle near their tier 1 turrets. This means that they're nerfing the ability for junglers to brainlessly gank, but buffing their chances at completing a tower dive safely, effectively nerfing the skill floors but also buffing the skill ceilings of jungle and support as roles. This is an amazing decision considering it's promoting good gameplay. You're being rewarded for pulling off risky plays, which is something that the community has been asking for more editions of. The important map changes don't stop there. Riot was extremely aggressive in terms of making both red and blue side equal. Red side teams have always had an advantage in terms of taking dragon. This is because they were faced with an open entrance to the pit, while blue side teams had to either make their way around or over terrain. This fact was mildly balanced by the fact that blue side basically had the same advantage in terms of taking Baron. However, while whichever advantage being more important was never black and white, now there's no true advantage at all. Red side was given a large wall in the same place that their entrance to the river used to be, meaning now both teams have to choose to go over a wall or around two different entrances. Meanwhile, on the Baron pit, 2 of the 3 new types of Baron show off different terrain that promote an even playing field for overall Baron pit control. While I'm showing this off, I might as well talk about Baron specifically. Surprisingly, the Baron Nashor objective has always been pretty boring in terms of its relevance. Sure, it was always good to secure and strong, however it never really changed that much. Riot has now given Baron 3 different forms. Hunting Baron, which leaves the pit as it's always looked, Territorial Baron, which puts up a wall facing blue side, and All-Seeing Baron, which has grown a large eye on its forehead and harshly closes off the blue side entrance to it while opening up a tunnel. Like I said earlier, this nerfs the Baron control advantage blue side has always had, while also adding a new interaction with Baron that the players have never really experienced before. One of these forms will be randomly rolled and spawn at 20 minutes. The Rift Herald was also given a new look, with an added Mario Kart feature just like the spawn sled in Nexus Blitz. This will be a cool addition because now you can use Rift outside of its original intended use of sieging turrets, since it can knock up enemy champions as well. However, after playing Nexus Blitz, I note that the sled mechanic can be more of a curse than a blessing most of the time. I think the mechanic will create cool interactions overall though. However, because there's only one Rift Herald spawn now, it's a lot less valuable since it can't insta-grab you plate gold because the plates fall at 14 minutes. The newly added Void Grubs and Void Mites are the reason there's only one Herald now. Okay, let's just call them Spermlings and Cucklings from now on. Anyways, they start spawning at 5 minutes and 2 sets of them can potentially spawn until 14 minutes when the Rift Herald switches places with them. Since their buff is really valuable, being able to give a global turret threat to your team that can stack, it brings a lot of early attention to top lane, since the more you play around bot, the more you risk the enemy sneaking them for their team. This has always been an issue since even Rift was originally added for the reason of bringing attention to the top side of the map. This, along with the jungle terrain changes, should be the nail in the coffin for the issue. Additionally, when Baron spawns, the double buffs become harder to kill and grant global buffs to the allies who are alive, and the same thing happens with the Scuttle. But when you slay it, a massive area of vision will poof into existence. These changes are pretty exciting, but don't change the core fundamentals of the game like the previously mentioned things. So yeah, I also think adding fist bump emotes was a nice touch. Now I can dab up the player who just told me to kill myself. Moving on, I wanted to talk about the item changes. While a lot of different things are being shifted around, my absolute favorite decision Riot made here is getting rid of Stopwatch. That's right, finally this disgusting item is being removed. It seems as though they are transferring the stasis active back to the Zhonya's Hourglass tree exclusively. However, now the Arm Guard item has the active as well. While I foresee this being really broken, I do think that because it's an AP item, it's still way healthier than Stopwatch was, which could be built universally. Stasis was the most balanced when only AP champions could use it, considering they usually work with cooldowns, while with Stopwatch's existence, champions that have constant DPS were given access to Stasis, and that was just too much for too long. In terms of what the whole community probably deems as their favorite item change, they are finally removing mythic items from the game. I explained this in my video about Riot's worst decisions, which you should definitely check out. However, I'll go over it again for the sake of this one. When mythic items were added, the league meta from then on became less about the champions and more about which champions are strongest with which items. Hullbreaker is also being changed to be healthier to play against. However, as it is right now, Hullbreaker is the most broken item, and that means whichever champion is the strongest with it, like Jax or Yone, will be the strongest, period. However, now that they're removed, that's no longer the case. The meta will be shifting towards the actual champions again, which is how it should be. We'll see the game become much less frustrating to play because of this. Also, with the removal of mythic items, build diversity has returned after essentially being non-existent. This, along with the addition of completely new items and the return of old ones like the Brutalizer or Tiamat, will make building items the most fun it has ever been. Probably. Another very nice thing to see is that a lot of the newer items are built for mages, and that is just refreshing considering this class of champion has been extremely neglected in the build diversity department for years and years. Most mage champions have like one build they always go, and that's not because they want to, but because they have to. This was partially because of the addition of mythics, and with the removal of them and newer items on top of it, fire. Ability haste is also getting hard nerfed naturally with the removal of mythics, and Riot just doesn't want it to be as prevalent anyways. I'm totally okay with this because the higher cooldowns players have, the harder they will be punished for not executing their combos correctly. Going in a less noob friendly direction is positive in my opinion. Finally, I really like the addition of quick play, replacing blind pick, because the point of this game mode is to get you in a match as fast as possible without quality control, and blind pick was just worse at doing that. Now that I've covered everything important, I'll give my predictions on what will happen this season. Jungle will become harder to play, with less agency but more objectives to worry about. The skill ceiling will be higher and players will be punished more for sucking at the role. Top lane will matter more because of the addition of the spermlings, and the meta will be about strong champs 1v1ing for priority over them, so top lane will become a much more mechanically intense role than it has always been. Support will be indirectly nerfed as well by the changes to mid lane, because their roams will be harder to successfully pull off. However, tower diving will be a priority, so mid lane meta will be about champions with good wave clear, as it will be easier to shove waves and harder to be shoved under your own turret with them. Bot laners will most likely die more in general because of the addition of the new areas to be flanked from. It's balanced by the removal of the long river bush, however ADC players are clueless, so it won't matter. The new map will feel very open and excitement will ripple across the player base as we essentially relearn the game. Riot Games fumbles a lot, but it looks like right now we're on the right path. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed my analysis and predictions of Season 14. If you liked it, please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. See ya!